Texas versus Georgia. This is one of 5 rematches in conference championship game weekend. The first time these two played was in Austin, and Georgia came out with a win. They dominated the game early. They made some huge defensive plays to put Texas in a very difficult position, and Georgia capitalized on that. They had very short field, and they were able to score a bunch of points to put Georgia up early, and that set the tone for the game. And since then, Texas was not able to come back from that. Will the game be very similar to that? I don't know. This is going to be a really tough one because I think it was kind of a product of circumstances in this first game where Georgia took a lot of advantage of some great defensive plays and defensive stops to put up some points. Now, is that going to happen again? Who knows? But this Texas offense really hasn't been all that impressive in terms of putting a ton of points up or, being that air raid that we saw them be last year. I'm a little concerned about this Texas offense. On top of that, I really wouldn't be surprised if we did see Arch Manning get some decent playing time in this game. We've seen Quinn Ewers recently. He hasn't looked all that great. I think he's a little bit banged up. And we saw Arch Manning come in last game versus Texas A&M and score a touchdown. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas is seeing some struggles and then we see Arch Manning come in and he could take over a game, because I have to be honest with you. I think if I'm Georgia, I think at this point, I might be a little bit more scared of Arch Manning than of Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning has a little bit more run capability than Quinn Ewers, and you can argue that the pass is relatively, the same, or maybe Quinn Ewers has a little bit of an edge, but Arch Manning is no slouch in that area either. So it'll be very interesting to see what Sark does with Arch Manning this game. So Georgia, on the other hand, they just came off an 8 overtime win over Georgia Tech, and in a game that they got outplayed in every single facet. They were not the better team on the field that day. They did end up winning the game, but they got outplayed by a Georgia Tech team who is pretty good, but they are also a team who has flaws and is a 7-5 team. So which Georgia are we going to see this weekend? Are we going to see the Georgia that really played really well against Texas? That was probably their best game. Or are we going to see the Georgia that is struggling versus Kentucky and struggling versus Georgia Tech and, struggling against these teams that are very inferior, that they have been playing down to? I think it's going to be a very close game. The spread is Texas minus 2.5. I think I'm leaning Georgia here. Everything in my bone wants me to take Texas because this isn't a revenge game for them. This is their first year in the SEC, and what a statement it would mean for Texas to go win the SEC in their first year. But I think the ceiling of what Georgia is able to do is higher than what Texas is able to do. So I'm not quite there with Texas yet. And I think I'm just leaning Georgia a little bit here. So give me Georgia plus the points. Could take them to win outright as well. Follow Big Body Ball CFB on all socials.